We'll be back from the break. You're watching Business Today. Now we talk about this regulation of communication devices. On August the 2nd, 2022, the Uganda Communications Commission formally launched the Anti-Illegitimate Mobile Communication Devices campaign in the country. The goal of the campaign was to raise awareness about and how to stop the usage of such devices. The major concern, though, is that since the campaign began, there has been limited assessment of how it performed because the counterfeit gadgets are still available on the market. More of the details.
The Uganda Communications Commission is obliged by Section 5K of the Uganda Commission Act 2013 to promote and preserve the interests of consumers and operators on the quality of communications and services and equipment. According to Honourable Abubakar Kawadia, the Member of Parliament for North Rubaga South, the government must concentrate on quality control because these phones freely enter the country market, even though the Uganda National Bureau of Standards is constantly reviewing the standards of imports on the market.
But first, we need to first ask, where do they pass? Don't we have the UNBS in this country, the one that is supposed to regulate the issues of quality control? Which work are they doing? Secondly, have they thought about the low-income earners who would also want to know what is transpiring in this world, who would have loved to have access to these funds? Do they know that if you levy high taxes on most of the imports, you restrict locals from accessing and using them? So to me, as a Member of Parliament, my call to our colleagues is one. First, most especially to the committee in charge of tourism and trade, we need to have a serious motion in Parliament speaking against the taxes that are being charged, most especially to the business concerning funds in this country. Because we all know there is a lot of fracas that has gone up. You go to URA, most of businesses are actually shutting down. Why? Their phones are being confiscated at URA.
However, Stanley Sempija, who imports used and new phones, claims that Ugandans have a weakness of ignorance of the gadgets they spend millions on.
So, the main reason there are so many counterfeit gadgets in the country is people have limited knowledge about original products. I think this is a culture within Ugandans. Ugandans don't like to read. Ugandans don't like to research before they buy a product. Personally, there are customers who come here and the first thing they tell you is there are so many counterfeit dealers, but I'm told you're the only authentic dealer.
The other argument against counterfeit gadgets is that they are cheaper than the original, which is why most Ugandans hurry to buy them.
Unfortunately, there are not so many second-hand phones. So the government has to choose between importing in second-hand phones, which also have their own problems, or going for cheaper, but what we would call less durable phones. And actually, today, if you go to China, if you go to Malaysia, there are phones specifically produced for Africa, excluding South Africa and maybe some other countries. But unless we start assembling phones here, that's one way how government can actually deal with fake phones. Give incentives to manufacturers of these high-end phones so that they don't only bring employment here, but they also help us solve the issue of these phones which are really not durable. But of course, even among the less durable phones, there must be a limit. There are phones which are being advertised. This is 20,000. I've ever tried to buy one at 30,000 to see how it works. And you would speak for 2 minutes and it is hot. So those challenges are there. But people are buying them because of their income levels. So it is a duty of the state to protect those people. One, accessing information. Communication is now a right. Therefore, if everyone is to go for iPhones, Samsung, they will not manage. So unless there is another way how government plans to avail these durable phones cheaply on the markets. Unlike a vehicle where someone can choose not to have the latest, a phone you must have. It is a must. You must have a phone.
It is estimated that over 180 million counterfeit mobile phones are sold globally per annum, representing a potential loss of 45 billion euros to legitimate device manufacturers and governments. Masi Katsime, Jerome Sonko for Smart 24 Business Today.
And now let's head to the Kabale Central Market Wars, as according to the preliminary investigations into the disputed events surrounding the allocation of vendors to the new Kabale Central Market, some Kabale municipality officials and the committee members in charge of the market allocation engaged in open extortion. The Honorable Raphael Majezi, the Minister of Local Government, ordered these investigations while visiting Kabale to mediate in the relocation disputes. We have more in this report.
Kabale Central Market chaos continues to develop as a section of vendors are still accusing the municipality authorities led by the mayor, Senator Mugisha, and Prosi Tuhirirwe, the assistant program officer in charge of the community development in the Ministry of Local Government, of allegedly receiving bribes to allocate stores and lockups to unknown people, civil servants, and their relatives. According to Ronald Bakak, the deputy RDC, this committee appointed by Honorable Minister Majezi and overseen by the Kabale RDC has received 259 complaints since its inception.
We had it on Wednesday and Thursday. However, it is true that so far what we have gathered, it shows that there were some issues. For example, we have received people who are complaining that they were conned money, and among which we have one complainant called Intunga Stephen. This one paid 45 million to a group of 3 people. That is his allegation, that these 3 people were Mutekanga Joshua, Canon, the chairperson of Vendors Association, Mr. Benoni, the market master, and the Akankwasa Federis.
He further adds that they will harmonize the situation between the old and new vendors to have lockups and ease their businesses in the market.
People are selfish. People are corrupt. What we are realizing as office of the RDs, that there are so many people, after the market is completed, people come with money and they tempt our municipal leaders. That's why you find that it's here, it is there, it is there. So the only way we are supposed to do is to fight that vice. That's why in Kabale we are making sure that we are going to take a serious step. Whoever has never been in the market will not be there. And whoever missed the market and he has been there will be there as long as the space is there. Because it's also possible that we don't have enough space, you never know. Though the vendors insist that the space which has been occupied by the newcomers, if they are evicted, it is very enough to accommodate the older vendors who have been in the market.
Reverend Canon Jack Katarishangwa, the chairperson for the lockup owners at Kabale Central Market, claims that he has received complaints from numerous individuals who paid for lockups to the commercial officer, accusing Awan Akankwasa Fidelis, who is presently on the run.
Reverend fathers who also bought, they were not there, but they gave money to the commercial officer, Mr. Akankwasa Fidelis, who could have been the treasurer probably of a big group which was receiving this money. But the one who was receiving was this Fidelis Akankwasa, the commercial officer, who is now on the run. Reverend Father Vicent Byaruhanga paid 30 million shillings for 2 lockups, and he has not been given those lockups.
According to him, they are no longer interested in obtaining the lockups, but rather in receiving their money back.
For them, they want their money back. They want their money to be paid back. They are no longer interested in the lockups. I am also not interested in getting back the lockup because what I want is my money.
In that particular regard, Reverend Father Godius Musinguzi, the head of Radio Maria in Kabale Diocese, claims that he gave Akankwasa 30 million shillings but was astonished when the relocation took place and realized that the deal was not real.
I paid 30 million shillings buying 2 lockups. Lockups number 94 and 90. As I said, I paid 30 million shillings, but I did not get the lockups. And now, to me, I'm completely disappointed.
The accused Akankwasa is currently on the run and Mufti Mikiza is on police bond. Norbert Ndiamhachi, Rona Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now let's head to our coffee cup discussions tonight. And President Museveni's stench on the minimum wage bill is that it will harm investors. And therefore, in today's coffee cup, we want to find out the gains from the minimum wage bill on the business, or as well as how it will affect the employee in the long run. Fred Makubuya with the coffee cup tonight.
Well, it is a pleasure and thank you for joining us on the Coffee Court. This is where we ask the critical questions, especially questions that matter. The discussion regarding matters of the minimum wage bill definitely continues to be matters of discussion. I remember when the president attended the symposium for the late Professor Emmanuel Mutebiri, one of the things he did say that the professor advised him was not to append a signature on the minimum wage bill because this would actually threaten investors. Would this be the fact, but how best can we deal with the issues of the minimum wage bill? Can it be a solution to managing problems in this country? That and more to bring us to speed is a lecturer from Makerere, Mr. Sempala Richard. Mr. Sempala, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to speak to you, Smart 24 TV. Richard Sempala, a lecturer here at Makerere School of Economics. Yeah, it's really a pleasure to speak to the issues that matter and moreover that are concerning our economy.
Okay. Straight away we talk about a minimum wage bill from the economic perspective. What is it?
Well, a minimum wage is that acceptable rate that a worker is given the productivity at workplace. So we are saying that it's minimum because it's acceptable between the employer and employee, at least to meet the employee's basic needs, as well as to ensure that the employer also break even in terms of earning profits. We know that employers in most cases establish firms with objectives, and one of the objectives of the firms are to maximize profits.
Okay.
So labor is one of the elements or the factors of production that they use to come up with the outputs that they sell out to customers.
Okay.
So in that, labor becomes one of the elements or the inputs, and the cost for labor is a wage. Okay. Workers are paid wage to compensate for their time.
The president, up to right now, Parliament did its part through the workers' MP. Up to now, the president has not assented to the minimum wage bill. He was advised that this would actually threaten investors in this country. That is the president's take. From the economic perspective, do you think this will actually be a threat to the investors in this country?
Well, setting a minimum wage is critical, and I think the president has a point, because Uganda, we are at a stage of, we are a low developing country, and we are at a stage where we want to have more investors coming to the country. As I noted earlier, that wage is a cost that is paid to workers in compensation of their skills, their time, and everything they contribute to a company or a firm. So in this, I think the president is just worried that in case the wage is set at a high bar. I remember in one of the proposals that the committee was proposing about 130,000 shillings as a monthly minimum wage for workers. So we have seen countries that have minimum wage and they are really doing well. So it's a question of bargaining. What is our bargaining power as the country? So where we have, say for example, strong institutions in terms of labor unions or even our policymakers or technocrats who can bargain well with the so-called investors, then we can have a good wage or a good rate that can benefit our employees as well as the employers. So in this, it is a question of facts and what we want. So we see that we are attracting investors, but also we need to take care of the welfare of our workers, right? So as a government, I think we might need to look at those two angles.
Some economists actually reason it that when you set a minimum wage bill, it would actually be an indicator that you are actually valuing laborers in your country.
Yeah, sure. A minimum wage, it is, as I indicated, is a cost. It's a cost or it's the value attached to a laborer. But here in most cases we consider the issue of labor productivity. Labor productivity, that is the marginal benefit an employer, so the employer get from the input or the skills an employer brings, the employee brings to the industry. So where the marginal productivity is low, then that calls for a low wage. But where the marginal productivity is high, then that person is ought to have to be paid a higher rate. So in most cases where a minimum wage is above the equilibrium, I'll use the equilibrium, then that can scare away investors because the cost of production in your country becomes high. So in that, the investors we are talking about, they might look at the alternative. But in this, we can also have to look at how we call it the supply elasticity of labor in the country. So there are sectors where you have a few workers, right, who are skilled and have all the qualifications to do the job.
Like which sectors? So where we have actually few workers?
Yeah, sure. In this we speak to sectors, for example, that takes a lot of time or that needs a lot of training time to have this person to be fit to do the work. For example, in terms of health workers or even the experts with a lot of experience. So it takes a number of years to train such people. So in that, where the labor supply is inelastic, then it calls for a higher wage that can even go beyond the minimum wage we are talking about, because you might not have alternative at the time. So at least here I think we might need to just speak to the welfare of our people. So in case this wage is set, I know investors might really disagree, but we can also look at the macro elements that come with people having money. So in that they can really do demand commodities, and in such aggregate demand increases. And when aggregate demand increases in the economy, then it implies that producers will have demand for their produce, and even the government can earn a lot of taxes from these who are really earning monies.
But some countries which actually may be not doing better than we are as a country have already appended a signature on issues of the minimum wage. Kenya has done so as an example among the countries that are in the East African community, and yet we seem to be doing better than them. They've already appended a signature on it.
I think here we have delayed, but it's really necessary, at least for people to have a minimum at which they can really offer their services to employees or companies. Yeah, because you look at the welfare of people. So in most cases, the issues sometimes we see related to corruption and or mismanagement comes with when people are not contented with what they get. Right?
Can we ever have contentment anyway?
Yeah, sure. I know sometimes people's demands are endless, and sometimes the more people receive money, the more they even need it more. So in that, the minimum wage is good because it adds value to the labor, and in such people can be really willing to offer their support or even abilities to work even beyond the required time to see that really they also maximize the benefits from work.
Okay. So between the two, who benefits? We have the employer and the employee. If we have this in place, who benefits? Who loses anyway?
Yeah, so it's really a two-way. Yeah, so a minimum would be benefiting both. So we put it at that level, equilibrium, where the employer will not say that it's a lot, and even where the employee might not say it is little or to meet his or her needs. But where we don't have the minimum wage, me, I would recommend that employers can look at other avenues, motivate workers. You can give them allowances, could be in terms of fuel, in terms of medical services, and many others. So in that, the employees can be motivated even to perform where there is no minimum wage.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And of course, if you're talking about the minimum wage, we have also what we call the living wage, which many of us actually, would we look at the two, both the minimum and then the living wage?
Yeah, well, the minimum and living wage all depends on the context and even the cost of living within an economy. So in a country, so workers are always motivated to work where they can really break even. At least they can meet their basic needs. So anything that is below that, then workers in most cases might not even be willing to give their labor, to give out their labor to employees. So it would be better, then always the living is below the minimum wage.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And so if we are talking about, what are some of the other areas that maybe workers would focus on other than wage as a means of probably motivating them?
Yeah, sure. I've already spoke to that where we don't have a minimum wage, employers should look at other avenues to motivate workers, because we know for the employer to get this profit we are talking about, you need workers, right, and health workers. So you might also look at other avenues. For example, do you really give ample time for workers to really to build on their capacities, right? So another one could be on medical insurance or medical so that really can motivate workers to perform even beyond the expectations. But also, even employees might want also to address some of the issues, right? We have seen that instances where the marginal productivity of employees is low. So in that might not motivate the employees to even give other benefits that might come from working. So in that, we are looking at workers who really show that they can really perform better. Currently, we have seen ministries, even the government is now implementing result-based financing or performance-based financing. Okay. So for a person, you are paid according to deliverables, so always set action points and then plans indicating the outputs a worker, so the employer might really look out for at a given point in time. So with that, then workers will really perform well. We have seen that implemented within health health facilities and then other government bodies. So where workers are paid according to the performance. Okay. You indicate the performance at the start of your employment, And the moment you reach those targets, then you are paid accordingly.
So reading the economic circumstances and situation, if this is appended a signature on, given the current circumstance, where does this leave us as a country? Mr. Sempala.
Yeah, currently I know that the government, or even us, we are worried about the employment. Jobs within the economy, jobs are still low compared to the number of people we have, right? So given the current situation, I think it would be great, even would hope citizens, those who are working, really to break even, or to really to meet their basic needs. But also we might need to look at the rate at which we add on more people looking for jobs. If the rate is very high compared to the rate at which jobs are created, then that worries a lot. Yeah, if we look at, for example, our population growing at about 3.2%, so it means that every year we add about 3.2 people, and majority of them, for example, are below the age of 18, and then that really is a cost even to those few who are working. So in that, it might require that those who are working to earn a given amount or amount of money, so that they can really cater for the dependents, because really we have a lot of dependents who are below 18 years.
Do we have other countries in Africa that you think this minimum wage bill is actually applying?
Yeah, sure. In Kenya, they have the minimum wage bill, and that is categorized depending on different levels and skills. Drivers, those who are working in garden, and so many. So they have different rates to different cadres, and I think it's working. Yeah, so minimum wage is also good. That really hopes. I think the issue could be on boosting people's demand, where people really have money, so they can demand more of commodities.
Okay.
And these commodities are produced by producers. So in that generally increases the monies in the economy, even the revenues the country can really tap from the consumption.
Okay. Well, because what is it that the president, in my view, is not seeing? The workers say it is a good proposal. The economists are saying it's a good proposal. The former governor of Bank of Uganda says it may not be an appropriate proposal. The president is saying, hold on, it may not be a good proposal. So who is not seeing rightly the other?
Yeah, I think currently we are trying to concentrate more on creating jobs. And who are these guys creating jobs? We are currently targeting investors. That the moment we have these guys coming, so they can bring their monies here, create, for example, establish factories, which factories can now employ more of our unemployed people, right? So I think the president is now looking more at having people getting jobs. And after that, so after establishing all these companies, factories, what, then we shall really have a number of them competing for workers. So in that, indirectly, then the laborers will be able to bargain more, because we shall have more companies demanding, for example, for few workers available, and in that, indirectly, that will have an impact on bargaining power of workers, which consequently can lead to a higher wage.
I've had an engagement with those in the labor export company. Some hold a view that there is high labor externalization simply because of lack of issues like the minimum wage bill. It is the reason partly young people are moving out of this country. Do you think so?
Really, I don't agree. I think currently the issue is about jobs. Jobs are scarce, right? So now people are trying to look at other avenues outside Uganda where they can really supply their labor, right? So in that, I think that's why the president is more concerned about setting this wage, because we are looking at attracting investors. Let them come, establish companies, and then after that, our laborers will be able to bargain for a higher pay, because there will be a lot of people demanding for their services.
Mr. Sempala, we must be winding up. Your parting shots on matters of minimum wage in this country.
Yeah, well, minimum wage globally is a good avenue for which I think in the long run the government need to consider, but also we might also need to look at the productivity of our people. I'm aware there are companies which pay highly beyond the expectation, because they really see that these people are delivering. So it is a concern of preparing our workers in terms of skills and capabilities to ensure that their marginal productivity is high to attract a given or a higher pay at that level.
Okay. Mr. Sempala, thank you for speaking to us, especially on matters regarding the minimum wage. For sure, I know that life is about perception. The president says this will chase away investors. The economists are saying it is a good thing. The politicians are saying the president should. The workers' MPs are saying the president actually is late. He should append a signature on it. What exactly needs to be done? The discussion continues. This is the Coffee Court, and my name is Fred Makubuya.
And right now, let's have a recap of our top stories.
In business today, business and household gutted as fire blazes through suburb. Authority appears before the Committee on National Economy to align loan funds and road infrastructure development. Legislators and other stakeholders submit to reroute Ginger to former industrial glory and tourism.
Many thanks for being part of business today. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Wins and Akuchi on Sign Language, and we've been coming to you live from plot 42 Nile Avenue. It is graduation week for students of Makerere University, and as the parents are driving, and of course all the students are driving during and after the graduation week, we do wish you well, but also be very cautious during the celebrations. Till tomorrow, have a good night and a good evening.